Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be discussing basically how to get started with tarot. So this video was chosen by the people over on Patreon, so I just want to say a big thank you to those people. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into this video. Now there are a lot of things and a lot of different ways I can take this for how to get started with tarot, and I can go over a lot of things which I initially thought about doing, like discussing maybe the history of tarot, or things like that, but ultimately I don't feel like that's really important to know, really, if you're getting started with tarot. So if you want to get started with tarot, I would say the first thing to do is buy a deck. Now, with that being said, I know there are superstitions, or some people really wholeheartedly believe this idea that you have to be gifted your first deck, and it gets bad luck or something if you buy your first deck. I don't think it's true at all, not at all. It's just a made up thing that some people say. I don't know why or where it came from, but you absolutely can buy your first deck, and ultimately I think buying your first deck helps you to have control over which one you get. Now there are going to be a lot of different decks out there when you go to buy your first deck, if you haven't already bought your first deck, and usually once you buy a deck you're probably going to be inclined to buy a second one. And I say that because it seems like every month, 50 more decks come out, and it's just now with self-publishing and all these independent publishing companies and like 50 different websites selling self-published decks, it's a lot more likely that you're going to run into something that is right up your alley, that perfectly suits your aesthetic, your style, in every possible way. So the only thing I would say is that if you are starting out with tarot, I would say buy a standard deck, maybe a Rider-Waite, or something extremely similar to the original Rider-Waite, because that one is the original basically. It's not the first tarot deck, but it's in my opinion, the best one for learning all the symbols, the numerology, all the different things that are hidden within a tarot card's imagery. Some decks, they venture very far away from the original imagery of certain cards, going so far as to even rename some cards, or even remove cards, or even add cards into the deck. You'll want to stick with the regular Rider-Waite tarot so that you can learn the basic tarot symbols and symbolisms. While you're doing that, it's okay to have a second deck that is just wildly different from that original deck, but I feel like that's just a good deck to kind of get a basic understanding of tarot. Now, as far as learning the cards go, this is probably going to be backwards, but I will paste it on the screen in right ways, I guess. So this is the Ultimate Guide to Tarot, and it is probably the best book I've bought so far. It's not perfect. 2 or 3 of the cards described in this book, I feel like it doesn't really give a well-rounded meaning to them, but generally speaking I think it's pretty good. It's full of full color illustrations of all the cards. I like it a lot actually. So, and that is The Ultimate Guide to Tarot by Liz Dean, I think. Yeah. So that's the book I would recommend. As far as YouTube channels go, there's, a dime a dozen. There's a million different creators out there creating videos about getting started with tarot. You don't need to go to Skillshare or Udemy or something like that. You don't need to take courses if you don't want to. You can learn from the comfort of your own home. But I say utilize all resources that are available to you. I would say practice a little bit every day for sure. Maybe have a daily draw, which is where you shuffle your cards and you just draw one card. Focus on that card. What I usually do is I usually draw 3 cards. Kind of like one extended message. That way I'm learning 3 cards a day. So I'll pull 3 cards and I will look up the formal definition of each card. Even if I've already know what the card basically means, I will still do this. I'll look at the definition of each of these 3 cards that I've pulled. It's not too much work to look up 3 definitions. Then I will go back to the cards and I will speak about each one to myself, kind of paraphrasing the meanings and kind of really grounding and absorbing the meaning in my own words in regards to these 3 cards. And it's kind of like a general message that's 3 cards worth, and that's what I do. So having a daily practice with tarot is really, you can't really beat that. It really helps you to really get accustomed to reading, accustomed to shuffling, and it really gives you a reason to keep studying, even if it's just 3 cards a day. Another thing I will say is the more you start reading with your cards, and you don't need to have all the stuff memorized at first, it's perfectly acceptable to read and have a book handy to look up cards you don't know, or even if you don't know any of the cards. There are people I know out there right now getting paid to do tarot readings, and they're still using the book while they're doing the readings. There are people on YouTube who, when they pull a card, they will pull the book out and read the meaning to the people, to the viewers at home. You know, there is a stigma about having to have a book when you're reading cards, but ultimately it doesn't really matter as long as the person, the querent, the person the reading is for, whether it's for you or another person, the only thing that matters is that they are getting a message that's in some way, shape, or form helpful to them. And I think whether you are going off of your memory or whether you're utilizing a book, which is just basically a tool, just like the tarot is a tool, at the end of the day, you're helping someone or helping yourself to gain a clearer understanding and give someone more clarity into a given situation. Another thing I would say that you can do in order to help you get more accustomed to reading tarot cards is watching other readers. You don't have to pay for readings from other readers, but go on YouTube. There are a million people do readings. Some of them do daily readings for different zodiac signs, or monthly readings and weekly readings. Basically, and this is another way to see what you can do with tarot. These people, they do tarot readings, they do daily. Some of them do daily readings. Some of them do tarot readings relating to different zodiac signs. Some of them do tarot readings relating to different astrological transits. So they will combine tarot reading with astrology reading. I mean, with tarot, there's so much you can do with it. It's such a versatile tool. And listening to other people give readings and hear how they interpret different cards, what they say different cards mean in their opinion, especially when they've been reading for many, many years, it really helps you to get a different insight and see certain cards from a new lens. Because what one card means to one person, it could mean something different to another person. And it's something that'll really become apparent the more you watch people doing tarot readings on YouTube. So that's definitely an enormously valuable resource, is YouTube tarot readers, and just watching these people do tarot readings. You don't have to watch readers you don't like. There's so many of them, you can really pick and choose. But a year ago I was watching completely different ones. It fluctuates. Sometimes I watch male readers, sometimes it's female readers, sometimes it's young people, sometimes it's older people. It really is just your vibe and your cup of tea. Some readers are very chill, some are very energetic with explosive energy. So just keep that in mind when you want to learn. That's another good way, because you can just, when you watch it, just watch it while trying to comprehend and kind of really absorb the energy or absorb the information that they're saying in regards to the readings that they're doing. Another thing, if you're getting started with tarot, is tarot spreads. Tarot spreads are basically when you lay out cards. So some people, they don't use spreads. I don't usually use spreads all the time, especially when I do a daily pull. I mean, that could be called a daily pull spread, but for me it's very informal. I just kind of pull cards out and I'm like, okay, this is the message, and I take whatever message I get from those cards. But some cards can have very specific spreads, so every place a card goes has a different meaning. Past, present, future. What does this person think about me? What do I think about this person? What is the future of our relationship? Every space, and some readings can incorporate every card in the deck. Some readings are 20 cards, some are just 10 cards, some are just 1 card. You know, but the more you go along with this, the more you will learn about new spreads. I would say go ahead and get a notebook and just record down every spread you come across that you really like, so you can kind of keep adding spreads to your repertoire. Every book about tarot usually comes with spreads. Most of the time when you buy a new tarot deck, it'll come with a little booklet, and that little booklet will have its own unique spreads unique to that deck. Some decks have very generic spreads, it's fine, but you will notice that. And I think it's good to keep track of all the spreads, because reading cards with spreads can help you kind of see cards in a new way and from a new perspective, to help you see more dimensions to a card that you maybe only thought of in one particular kind of way. Now, I think that reading tarot cards and learning tarot can be a very big thing, and it can feel overwhelming because there are 78 cards, but I would say just take the cards little by little. One thing that is very helpful to me, especially at the beginning, was writing a cheat sheet. So get a piece of paper and write down, list all the cards preferably if you can see all the names of all the cards right in front of you, and write down maybe 3 to 5 keywords for every card. And every time you're shuffling the cards and you pull cards out, you can look up right above your desk or wherever you're reading, and you can see the keywords, so you don't have to open up the book and find the card and read the whole paragraph meaning about the card. This is just a quick way to kind of ingrain a few keywords about each card, so that way no matter what card you pull, even if it's a card you know relatively nothing about the meaning of it, you'll be able to look at those 5 keywords and be like, okay, that gives me a general jumping off point to go on with this reading, so I don't have to stop what I'm doing and look up the meaning. Having the keywords, once you memorize the keywords, you will find that the readings will go a bit more smoothly, especially in regards to the cards you're having trouble with, because it's different for everybody, but there are certain cards that everyone always has trouble with. For some people, it's the court cards, which are the cards that represent people in real life, like the kings and queens in tarot. For some people, it'll be a whole suit, like the suit of swords, which is very intellectual. For some people, it'll be some of the major cards, and those are the cards that have to do with giant life changes. And so some of those cards are a bit nebulous, and their meanings are kind of not vague, but they're very kind of abstract, so it can be hard to kind of pinpoint down a steadfast meaning right off the bat with some of these cards. So I would say write down a list of keywords, and I think that will serve you greatly, especially if you're just starting off trying to memorize and get started with tarot cards. Another thing I would say is to keep your cards cleansed. So make sure you clean them. There are different ways of cleansing cards. You can clap over them, you can blow on them, you can set a crystal on top of them with the intention that the crystal cleanse the cards. You can ring a bell over the cards, you can pass sage smoke over them. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. One thing I will say is, do not pass your cards through fire. They will get burned, they will get damaged. Do not wet your cards. If you want to wash them with Florida water, I would say pour a little bit of Florida water on like a cloth, one that's not very damp, and gently go over the surface of the cards, and then dry them with a separate cloth. Do not let your cards get wet, water damaged. Do not pass them through fire, which I've heard some people say. That's literally just going to damage and burn your cards. When you have a tarot deck, if one of the cards gets badly damaged, you can't really use that card anymore now in that deck. You might have to buy a whole nother separate tarot deck. So you really just want to take care with your cards, and you want to make sure they're kept clean so they can read for you as efficiently and clearly as possible. There's no limit to the amount of tarot decks you can own. You can own as many as you want. You can use multiple tarot decks in the same reading. You can lay out all the cards in the spread, then you can shuffle a different tarot deck and lay those cards on top of those cards for like a deeper meaning to the cards. There's so much you can do with tarot. You can also incorporate them with oracle decks, which you will see a lot of people do, especially if you're watching tarot readers on YouTube. Oracle decks are basically decks of cards that have their own meanings. They're not really structured like tarot. Usually they're about 40 to 42 cards. They're usually a lot bigger than tarot cards, and they're even more varied than tarot decks, or just as varied really. Oracle decks usually have some general theme like Halloween or mermaids, or some of them are specifically for shadow work. They might be infernal or angelic. Really, it's just whatever your taste is. Personally, most of the time people will do a tarot reading and they'll pull 1 or 2 oracle cards to kind of give a little bit of an extra message for the reading. Sometimes people will pull 1 oracle card and draw tarot cards to kind of expand on the oracle card meaning. Really, the sky's the limit. Oracle cards, they don't really require too much memorizing. Some oracle cards have the meaning written right on the card, so you don't even have to look them up really. I think they're a nice supplemental tool to tarot cards. I think they go hand in hand personally, and I have just as many oracle decks as I do tarot decks, which is probably over 50 by now. So if you're interested in oracle decks, by all means buy them. They're really nice, and you know, you can find something for whatever your taste is. Even if there are certain beings you work with, there are decks completely just about one being. So really, you have so many options, and you should be really excited if you are getting started with tarot, because it's a really special divination tool, and I think that you'll be really happy with it, especially if you stick with it. with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the luck if you're starting a tarot journey, and I will see all of you in the next one. Take care.